Brooke Hogan asked to be taken off her dad, Hulk Hogan's will.
Yeah.
So she won't get anything from the estate.
This is shocking.
Brooke Hogan didn't just give up her father's fortune. She left behind years of pain. Now, at last, she is voicing why. According to Brooke, her father wasn't who everyone believed him to be. He is capable of anything. Let's put it that way. The information that Hulk Hogan is currently revealing could totally shatter any preconceived ideas you may have about her. Let me clarify the horrible truth and the will dispute. When Hulk Hogan died on July 24, 2025, at the age of 71, the wrestling community mourned the loss of one of its greatest heroes. Celebrities, other wrestlers, and millions of fans worldwide offered their tributes. Brooke Hogan, his own daughter, was noticeably missing from the public mourning though. And following the death of the Hulkster, a shocking revelation emerged that would fundamentally change our understanding of the Hogan family's past. The shocking news came just a few days after Hogan's funeral. Since Brooke Hogan had proactively requested to be removed from her father's will in 2023, well before he died, she would not inherit any of his estimated $25 million estate. This was not a case of being written out in fury. This deliberate choice was taken by a daughter who could no longer stand to be associated with her father's wealth.
Hogan asked to be taken off her dad, Hulk Hogan's will.
Yeah.
So she won't get anything from the estate.
This is shocking. Sources say Brooke made the decision to be taken off of the will due to mistrust of the people around Hulk, and she was fearing for future legal or financial conflict.
But the most startling revelation came from Brooke's spouse, Steve Alexi, who provided hitherto unheard of insight into the dark realities of the Hogan family's wealth. In an exclusive interview that shocked the wrestling community, Alexi revealed that Hogan's wealth was built at the expense of Brooke's dignity, referring specifically to the Gawker settlement money that came from his own daughter's involvement in a racial tape scandal. The tragic facts paint a picture of systematic exploitation that went far beyond typical familial dysfunction. Alexi claims that the $31 million Gawker payment, which was connected to Hogan's racial remarks about Brooke's ex-boyfriend, counted for a sizable amount of his wealth. He clarified that my wife had to pay for the wealth, dignity, emphasizing that the real victims of the incident never received an apology or compensation. Our assumptions regarding Hogan's success and financial recovery are called into question by this evidence. While the wrestling legend was successful in his case for violation of privacy and was able to restore his fortune, his daughter, who had publicly supported him and whose relationships had been damaged by his statements, endured nothing but constant humiliation and a troubled family life. The family has been growing farther apart for years. Brooke married former NHL player Stephen Alexi in 2022, and the two welcomed fraternal twins, Oliver and Molly. Things that happened in January 2025 that Hogan didn't know about due to the war. Imagine living so far away from your father that he doesn't even know your grandchildren exist. The friendship between Brooke and Hogan deteriorated over time, and they haven't communicated since September 2023. Their most recent conversation revealed the disastrous condition of their relationship. Concerned about Hogan's declining health following almost 25 surgeries, Brooke counseled him to prioritize his family. Despite her entreaties, Hogan ignored her advice and continued with his demanding schedule. Even more devastating were the revelations about the psychological abuse that had led Brooke to flee. In a March 2025 public speech, Brooke accused both parents of serious verbal and psychological abuse since childhood, saying it ruined her life and made her lose her self-esteem and confidence. But perhaps most damaging of all were her allegations that she had been forced to publicly defend inappropriate behavior while others profited from her suffering and shame. This remark takes to a scary new meaning when we learn how her loyalty had been exploited for financial and public relations advantage during her father's most controversial periods. The family turmoil had exploded into the public eye earlier in 2025 when Linda Hogan posted an emotional video lamenting the family's worst mess, noting Brooke's secret marriage and twins without alerting her parents. Interview:
My family is in the worst mess. Brooke doesn't talk to us. She's had twins. She got married. She didn't tell us. She had a huge fight with Terry. I don't know how that reflected onto me, but she cut me out too. I haven't talked to her for almost 8 years.
Response to Hogan's death was both heartbreaking and enlightening. Despite everything that had happened, her devotion showed how deeply they were friends. She penned, "My dad's blood runs through my veins. His eyes reflect through my children, and our bond is indestructible. Even in his final hours, we had a lifelong connection that transcended language." She did, however, add categorically that their arrangement was necessary for her emotional health. Brooke clarified during a series of private phone calls. Hogan confided in her about his personal and professional struggles, avoiding a contentious debate. She described how, as his health worsened, she accompanied him to more than 25 surgeries before feeling suddenly disconnected, as if he were surrounded by a force field. Brooke talked about how she stood back to shield her feelings throughout her high-risk pregnancy with twins and how courteous disputes emotionally taxed her.
That Brooke's focus was always protecting her dad. She never wanted personal gain. She's obviously deeply saddened about her father's death and feels hurt he didn't fully trust her in the end. They had some issues in the end.
The will issue has sparked heated debates about money, family loyalty, and the true price of growing up in the spotlight. Others have praised Brooke as mature or principled, interpreting her decision as rejecting a damaging inheritance, while others have denounced her as ungrateful for refusing family money. Despite being removed from the will, Brooke is still set to get money from a life insurance fund created specifically for her children's college education, suggesting that even in rejection, there remains some lingering evidence of the father-daughter bond that had seemed unbreakable. But we need to go back to the pivotal moment to understand how this terrible situation came to be. The controversy that irrevocably altered the Hogan family's connections and set the stage for this final betrayal. Because Brooke's disclosure about how her father's riches was created will shock her to her core and force her to confront the awful truth about the guy she had spent years defending. The racist scandal and Brooke's depressing defense. To understand why Brooke Hogan declined millions of dollars, we must examine the horrific event that not only damaged her father's reputation, but also demonstrated how her personal loyalty and dignity had been exploited as leverage for his financial gain. Although he was admired by millions as an all-American hero, the story begins with a secret tape that exposed his darker side. In 2012, the gossip site Gawker published excerpts from the audio that would change everything. Hogan's relationship with Heather Clem, the wife of his friend Bubba the Love Sponge, was exposed in the tape. In 2006, the recording was made without Hogan's details, while his life was already in disarray. He was having marital problems. After his son Nick was involved in a terrible car accident that left a friend with brain damage, Hogan was experiencing severe depression. Initially, it seemed that the debate was centered over the privacy violation. Hogan sued Gawker for $100 million, claiming that the publishing of the private film had infringed his personal rights. The case's $140 million jury award, which was later settled for $31 million, would effectively force Gawker Media into bankruptcy. The legal victory was funded by tech billionaire Peter Thiel, who harbored personal animosity toward Gawker. But what the broader audience didn't know, and what Brooke herself will learn much later, that there was far more dangerous content on the videos. According to her husband Steve Alexis's later revelations, Brooke never directly apologized to or compensated for the controversy. even though it significantly increased Hogan's future riches. She was also not informed of the complete transcripts. When the whole audio of the recording was disclosed in 2015, it revealed comments that shocked the wrestling community and destroyed Hogan's painstakingly built reputation. That was the real devastation. When discussing Brooke's past relationships, especially her relationship with a black man, Hogan used racial epithets a lot. I mean, if she was going to some, I'd rather have her marry an 8ft tall N worth $100 million like a basketball player, Hogan said on the recording that was made public. Besides, he said, I guess we're all a little racist. It was a swift and deadly reaction. Hogan was instantly kicked out of the WWE Hall of Fame, and his contract was canceled. Endorsement deals fell through. The man who had embodied wrestling's public appeal became a household figure in the industry he helped establish. Perhaps the most upsetting of all was witnessing Brooke's response to her father's shame. At first, Brooke backed her father with a dedication that now seems fatally misguided. Despite the fact that his comments were incredibly personal and nasty, specifically referring to her and her relationships.
Easy target. This is what this business is all about, and we know that. I don't support what he said, but he's my dad. I love him. When you're mad and when you're at the lowest point in your life and you're mad at somebody, you just choose ill-fitting words.
Conversation, Brooke demonstrated the loyalty that would define their relationship for years to come, even during her father's most destructive acts.
Who he is, though. He's not racist. I definitely would not want things that I say behind closed doors, and I'm sure you wouldn't or anybody else watching. Nobody would want their lowest moment to be filmed and aired for the world.
This defense of her father reveals Brooke's complex emotional state. This was a young lady who had been raised in the public eye, who had built her own career partly on her family's fame, and who was now expected to be critical of the man who had been her protector and provider.
First of all, that's who I am. I'm loyal. Like, if you're honest with me, it doesn't matter. I will love you. I will stand up for you till the end. People can have differing opinions, right? Like, I'm not God. I can't judge. I can't tell you if you're right or wrong. I'm not going to judge somebody for sinning differently than I do.
Her defense, however, is all the more tragic now that we know. Family sources claim that the racial remark controversy led Brooke's music career to stagnate and severely damaged her relationship with her then-boyfriend. The exact relationships that her father had made racist comments about were being destroyed by the public revelation of his comments. Even more distressing is the realization that Brooke's argument may have been based on false information. According to Alexi, Brooke backed Hogan, despite not completely comprehending the racial remarks on the tape as the whole thing. Transcripts were not made available to her. This suggests that her public support of her father was based on falsehood and manipulation, which in retrospect makes her loyalty and forgiveness even more heartbreaking. At the same time, Hogan seemed to be considering the full implications of his comments. He ultimately apologized in public, saying that the language was inappropriate and inconsistent with his beliefs, and emphasizing that everyone should be treated equally, regardless of race. Many, however, believed that the apology was more about getting caught than it was about truly regretting what had.
He takes responsibility for it, and he knows, he's like, I messed up. Like, this is the repercussions of what.
48. The tragedy of this period is heightened by the knowledge that the issue would ultimately contribute to Hogan's financial recovery. The Gawker contract, which brought Hogan $31 million after legal fees, contributed significantly to his final $25 million wealth. In essence, Hogan was getting compensated for making racist statements against his own daughter. Brooke would not ignore this cruel irony when she reflected on her relationship with her father in the years that followed. Her personal relationships were damaged, and the person who first degraded her had profited from the very issue that did. So, using her loyalty as a shield to protect his reputation, he had profited from his own bigotry.
If I had to go through what he did, I don't know if I would have, I probably would have just broken. I told him, I said, people aren't stupid. They have a good gut instinct on who people are, and you're a great dad, and everybody messes.
In 2018, after additional public apologies and sensitivity training, Hogan was eventually allowed to return to WWE, but the damage to his family relationships proved to be far more irreversible than the damage to his profession. Later on, Brooke would come to understand that her father's financial recovery had a direct effect on her relationships, emotional well-being, and sense of dignity, without ever understanding the repercussions of his actions. The man she had so ardently protected had used her shame as the foundation for his return and her loyalty as a way to heal himself. This realization, eventually, led to the total breakdown of their relationship and her remarkable decision to cut all ties with his fortune. But to understand how they arrived at this point, we need to examine their formative years together during the height of their fame. On reality TV, which first exposed the troubled connections that would eventually lead to the dissolution of the Hogan family. The years that were both golden and not so golden. Before the scandals, the alienation, and the shocking decision to reject millions of dollars in inheritance, the Hogan family seemed to represent the American dream. They appeared to be wrestling royalty from the standpoint of reality TV, a loyal family negotiating the unique challenges of fame without compromising their bonds. But as we now know, the family would eventually disintegrate due to the dysfunction that underpinning those happy years. The intricacies of the Hogan family were first presented to the public during the 2005 to 2007 season of the VH1 reality show Hogan Knows Best. The show depicted what seemed to be a loving but overly protective family, with Hogan as the father who would do anything to keep his children safe. As the daughter of one of the most well-known figures in American popular culture, Brooke Ellen Bala was born on May 5, 1988, and the show gave viewers a rare look into her real life.
To wind down, phase one of Hulk Hogan winding down, and the reason is family, a 1-year-old son, a 3-year-old daughter, and a wife that's put up with all this craziness for so long.
In those early interviews, Hogan presented himself as a devoted family man who was willing to prioritize his children before his career. He spoke about the importance of being there for his family and appeared honest in his desire to be a hands-on.
Into that, it's like my senses all come alive when I'm with my wife and kids,
Are you a real Mr. Mom? You've changed diapers?
Oh yeah, I'm terrible. I really am overprotective, especially with my children.
But what seemed like protective parenting on television was actually a doorway into more significant issues with control and boundaries. By installing a GPS tracker on Brooke's car and threatening the choreographer for her music video for making provocative gestures, Hogan interfered with her romantic life as episodes highlighted. What was depicted as amusing overprotectiveness turned out to be a pattern of controlling behavior that would last the entirety of Brooke's life.
Growing up, people wanted to be your friend just so that they can come over and see your 18,000 square foot house and be around your dad.
Yeah, I will say just in general, I think when you're in the position that we're in, it happens, it still happens. People think that it's something else. And that's the thing that I think is so misconstrued or misunderstood about fame, right? Is that they think immediately if you're famous, you must be rich, or immediately if you're a daughter of somebody that you just have it.
The reality show that would follow Brooke for the rest of her life also exposed her to some level of public scrutiny. Hogan rose to fame in the 1980s as a legendary figure in professional wrestling, who was recognized for having made WWE a well-liked entertainment corporation. And now his daughter was thrust into the same spotlight, albeit she didn't necessarily choose it for herself. At this time, Brooke was pursuing her own entertainment career, using her father's connections and resources to get into the music industry. Brooke recorded albums like Undiscovered 2006 and The Redemption 2009. toured with vocalists like Hilary Duff, and even appeared in wrestling stories. Her father's fame was both a blessing and a curse. Even though it gave her chances, it also meant that everyone viewed her behavior through the lens of being Hulk Hogan's daughter. But beneath the even cracks were beginning to show on the surface of this apparently successful family. The year that Hogan knows best ended with a series of catastrophic events that rocked the family and changed their dynamics forever. In 2007, Nick Hogan's friend John Graziano was involved in a serious vehicle accident that left him with a traumatic brain injury. Following the tragedy, the family came under intense public and legal scrutiny, with many people questioning if Hogan's parenting style contributed to his son's reckless behavior. That same year, the family was given even more devastating news. When Linda filed for divorce, she made accusations of infidelity and violence. The divorce proceedings would reveal shocking details about the family's personal lives.
They are still reeling, but they can't get their feet back on planet Earth, and I can't get my life back on track either. I don't know, what am I supposed to do, start over now? I'm 57, and I don't know where I fit in this world anymore.
One Brooke may have suffered the most directly as a result of Hogan's alleged liaison with Christian Plant, Brooke's closest friend. There was a long-standing betrayal. Her trust and interpersonal relationships were directly impacted by her father's violation, in addition to the failing marriage of her parents. After the divorce was finalized in 2009, Linda received over 70% of Hogan's liquid assets, 40% of his enterprises, and $3 million in property. Hogan suffered a devastating financial loss as a result of the settlement, but the family...
When we decided to go our own ways, it was pretty much an amicable decision because, he really needed to kind of grow and find his own friends and his own, have his own apartment and have his own life and figure out how to do it.
The private issues of the family were being made public as Hogan and Linda were accused of infidelity, violence, and divorce. In recordings, Linda claimed Hogan of being a complete liar and an addict, while Hogan accused her of being narcissistic. During these difficult years, Brooke was caught in the crossfire of her parents' increasingly toxic relationship. She was forced to take sides, answer questions from the media, and try to maintain some kind of normalcy as her family broke up in the most obvious way possible. The reality show that had made them famous now appeared to be a cruel farce. The image of the loving, protective father who would do anything to protect his children was being systematically destroyed by court documents, tabloid headlines, and increasingly combative public pronouncements from both parents. But at the same time, a more important debate was quietly taking shape, and the public was ignorant of it. Hogan had sex with Heather Clem, the wife of his friend Bubba, the Love Sponge, at this time. He had no idea that encounters were being recorded on video. When seen in the context of everything that would follow, those glory days of reality TV fame take on a far darker hue. The overly cautious parent who kept tabs on his daughter. The overbearing dad who interfered in every aspect of his children's lives. The man who would break his daughter's confidence by having an affair with her friend. All of these warning signs were masked by reality television's entertainment value. In reality, the chaos that seemed to be typical of famous families was the beginning of a history of exploitation and treachery that would eventually force Brooke to make the momentous choice to cut all ties to her father's money. The seeds of the eventual breakdown of the family had already been planted early on reality TV days. Simply said, they hadn't grown into the poisonous tree that would eventually bring down the Hogan clan. The golden years were not at all like that. They signaled the beginning of the end. A cleverly crafted illusion that highlighted the cruelty and dysfunction that would eventually force a daughter to choose between millions of dollars and her own dignity. And as we've seen, when given the choice, Brooke Hogan chose for herself. For more in-depth videos like this one, check out the cards that are suggested on your screen.